Chapter 4.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. We have completed chapter 46 today. We're starting 47, and I hope to complete the entire chapter tonight. Chapter 47 is the shortest from all chapters in the Tanya. But just to get to understand, let's just refresh our mind what we studied in 46. In the last four chapters, from 44, the last three chapters, the Rabbi wants to assist in a quick way of bonding with God through love and fear, an era. In chapter 45, the Rabbi was speaking about mercy, to have mercy on the soul, and out of mercy to bond with God, if anybody remember. Chapter 46, the Rabbi was talking about reflection. He used the example of looking at the water, it reflects your face. When one contemplates all the greatness that God has done with us, naturally we want to be thankful, appreciative, and loving. And the Rabbi was speaking about the fact that God Himself, not a minister, not an agent, not an agency, but God Himself came down to the dunghill, to Egypt, and picked us out, and it's not enough. He's taken us to His own private chamber in the palace, gave us the keys, and says you can use it and benefit anytime, anywhere you want. How appreciative should we be? The Rebbe then addressed two more things. One, the Rebbe addressed, what happens if I don't feel it? I don't feel that God is taking care of me. We do suffer, we go through a lot of hardship. And he brought in from Asaph. Asaph is one of Korach's sons, who says, Ani bar velo eda, I am a boor and I know nothing. Behemot haiti imach, me and animals are equally the same. Just like you don't expect the animal to appreciate and know exactly what you go through and what you have in mind, don't expect us to feel and sense godliness, because the body is a thick skin that has no sensitivity to godliness. Therefore, it doesn't matter if I serve God, if I pray, I study Torah, I do a good mitzvah. What I did was bonding with God, bringing joy to my soul to be able to connect with God and show love. The Rebbe then went on to talk about the idea of kadosh, asher kiddeshanu. Every time we do a mitzvah, we thank God for kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav. Kiddeshanu is translated as sanctify us, but it's not incorrect. Kiddeshanu means separating us and elevating us, like a marriage. We spoke about marriage is kiddushin, the start process. Actual marriage is nisuin, but betrothal, the first process of marriage is kiddushin. So when God took us out of Egypt, there was betrothal. The actual marriage took place on Mount Sinai, the second place. And the Rabbi talked about two types of expressing love or affectionate expression. One is hugging, when you need both arms together and your body, your torso, right, left, and torso representing mitzvot. You have mitzvot on the right, mitzvot on the left, and the body. But then study of Torah, intellectual, is kissing, mouth to mouth. You kiss, you use the lips of the face. That's the idea of intelligent, and that's the Torah. So we can express love towards God by doing a mitzvah, we embrace God, or by studying Torah where we use our mouth. That's why Torah is greater in a way of expressing our love towards God. This is what we studied so far. Did I cover? Did I summarize well? Ali? What? Just a story, because Ali has been a good student, dedicated to Ali. I think I shared the story, but it's worth sharing. There was a maskil. Maskil is an enlightened Jew who decided to criticize. This was a movement in about 100 years ago, where in Russia, in Europe, in Paris, where they would question everything, and if it doesn't make sense to them, they just abolish. So a maskil, one of those enlightened Jews, came to the Rebbe Rashab, to the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, I believe it was 1850, 1860. And he told the Rebbe, prove to me, I want help. Prove me there are angels. Because you can't see angels. And the Rebbe tried, but as much as the Rebbe explained to him, he was adamant, I don't see it, there is no angels. So the Rebbe used the following parable. The Rebbe says to him, imagine there is a bunch of Hasidim who want to discuss angels and ask questions of the Rebbe. They hired a driver with a wagon and a horse to take them from Krasnia to Lubavitch. Krasnia is the nearby town from Lubavitch. So there are three parties riding towards Lubavitch, towards that town of the Rebbe. You have the horses, you have the driver, the Uber driver, and you have the Hasidim sitting in the wagon having a farbrengen. Now, each one is going to Lubavitch for a different reason. The horses can't wait to get to Lubavitch because they know over there is hay. They're going to be fed. Can't wait. They want to eat. The driver want to get to Lubavitch so he can get paid and buy food for Shabbos. That's why he's going to Lubavitch. The Hasidim are going to Lubavitch because they want to discuss with the Rebbe about angels. Says to him the Rebbe, the fact that the driver and the horse don't even have any clue about angels and all they think is about their own individual needs, does it negate the fact that there is angels? So there are people who, belong to, they belong to money, but it doesn't change the reality. So the fact that the soul does not sense God, or myself don't sense God, it doesn't take away from it. And therefore, as long as we are embracing God, kissing God, those expressions do have an impact. This is a story for last week. And now we're going to go into this week's. The Rebbe will continue about a very powerful point that to me, as I said before, and I started speaking about it last week, about the idea of Elokeinu, Elokechem, Elokah, the only God's name that can be applied to plural, singular, past, future tense is Elokim. Havaya is spelled Yud Kei Vav Kei. Adoshem, Aleph, Dualet, Nun, Yud, spelled all the time, even if it's a past in the future. Elokim, it's not. You God, Elokecha. Your God in plural, Elokechem. My God, Elokai. His God, Elokei. The only one, and as we'll discuss this idea about the greatness that God has done. But I'll begin with a story. There was a famous rabbi. His name is the Ragachover. He came from a town in Poland called Ragachov. Yosef Ruzin. Ruzin is his last name. He was a giant. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says that he was like my Rambam. The Rebbe had corresponded with him on some topics. One day somebody walked. He wasn't a rabbi of a community, but he was a giant. In fact, he grew his hair long. He couldn't cut his hair. It would hurt him. It would hurt him. Like if I cut my body part, his hair was... A man walked into him and says, Mazel Tov, congratulations on your marriage. And the Ragachover says, what do you mean, congratulations? I have daughters, I'm married for many years. He says, I heard, this Chassid turned to him and says, I heard there is a debate whether marriage is something that is done once and then it's accomplished and it changed reality, or once a couple agreed to get married, it's a process that will continue happening continuously. Did everybody understand the difference? So I'll use the example of electricity. There is something that's called, I flick the switch. Now the switch is turned on. Does that mean there is power? Or I need the power of electricity, the power plant to continue feeding power. Otherwise, it doesn't, switching it doesn't, it just connects it to the power plant, but the power plant has to continue producing. What happens if somebody shut down the power? The Ragachover is of the opinion, and it has many impacts on many levels. The Ragachover is of the opinion that when someone gets married, that connection is re-established, continuous all the time. It's not something that happened once. In other words, my half soul, hopefully I found it. If I don't get divorced to my spouse, that's my half. Is it something I refined, continuously connecting, or it's something I established and it's done? The Ragachover is of the opinion that we get remarried all the time after we have established the first time. And that's why the guy says to him, you're getting married every moment. That's why I say Mazel Tov. And the Ragachover accepted it. Why is it important? Because as we'll see, actually what we're talking about, the relationship between us and God enacted it that way, but that's the way it works in every part of our life. If I want to have my face reflected by the water, do I have to stay there? Yes or no? What happens if I walk away? It's gone. Why? After all, I look there. It should be there. And the answer is, the only way for my face to be reflected is if I am looking at the water. As soon as I step away, the reflection is gone. Says the Rebbe, that's because we will discover that's the way God did it. If I want to enjoy a relationship with somebody, it's not enough to get married. It's not enough to tell I love you, or to tell a partner we are in partnership and we're going to work together. There has to be a reinvestment as if it is from the start all over every day. If I want to have respect from my children, I need to earn it every single interaction I have with them. Otherwise, it's like the fool who stands by the water and look down and he sees his face and he tells somebody, if you want to see how I look, go to the water where I stood, gives him the exact space and says, there you can find me. Of course, that's a Hanukkah joke. Thank you. That's why, of course, you can have a picture, you can have a video, but that's not live. If I want to have my reflection and the movement of my face and smile, I have to stand by the water. If I want to have relationship, we'll see how deep it goes, because that's the way God wants it to be with him. And therefore, God does it first. But if I want to have a relationship with somebody, marriage, children, partner, neighbors, there is no sense of telling someone, well, I bought you flowers last year. It should be enough. Has to be a continuous. There is this guy, it reminds me, I can go running jokes forever. There is this guy from a country of very stingy people who came home with a bag of pistachios. So for the first time, so his wife asked him, what did you get? He says, pistachios. Wow, can I taste it? He said, sure. He gave her one. She likes it. She says, I love it. Can I have more? He says, well, what for? They all taste the same. Anyway, they all taste the same. So, and I can go on and on and on. So, what she said to me. That's what she says to you. So, if you do not reinvigorate, by the way, the whole idea of mikveh, it gives me a plug to plug in. The whole idea of mikveh is for what? To reinvent the marriage again. When the mikveh night comes, we get married. It's really a marriage again all over. So it doesn't mean that after the mikveh time, after when the couple passed that age of the need for the mikveh, it doesn't mean they stop that to reinvigorate their marriage. It should be a Friday night. It should be whenever. But expecting, because we are kind to one another, because we expect from one another, I'm going to pay the bill, you're going to clean the house, whatever it might be, that's not a relationship. It's like someone who moved away from the water expecting his image to be there. That will explain something very powerful, and we study it in JLI, last one, lesson number 6, I believe, which was the most lesson number 4, which was the most powerful one. But I think here we're going to take a little bit, a tad to the side, and that is, why is it that God is commanding us to remember exit from Egypt every day? 3,000 years ago, something happened. I have to remember that. Not me, not my father, not my grandfather. Never been there. Why do I have to remember that? In addition, God makes it the central theme of serving God. Every day in the Shema, we must remember exit from Egypt. Every Friday night we begin Kiddush, Zecher Yetziat Mitzrayim. Every holiday we begin Kiddush. Shabbat day, we talked about Exodus from Egypt. Not only that, the first commandment is, and we'll talk about that in a moment, I am God who took you out of Egypt. What do you mean I'm God who took you out of Egypt? I'm God who created you. Why took you out of Egypt? Taking you out of Egypt. And the most important thing, it seemingly happened many years ago and does not have any impact on me today. And part of the explanation, as we'll discuss, we need to leave Egypt every single time. The relationship between me and God is depending on the fact of me getting out of Egypt. If I am enslaved, I will not enjoy a relationship. Imagine someone who is married, he or she are under the duress of the parents or under the duress of a boss. It's impossible to have a relationship because you don't know what time they're going to go home. You don't know how long they're going to be at home. You don't know anything because somebody else is running their life. If I were to enjoy a relationship with God, there must be freedom from Egypt, as we'll talk about spiritual Egypt. That will explain something else. The relationship between me and God is much different than my relation than Abraham and relationship and God. You would think that Abraham was much closer to God, perhaps, but my relationship is on a whole different plane, as the Rabbi will talk about. And finally, the Rabbi will address one more question that anyone who does not study Chassidut and Kabbalah cannot answer. What does Shema have to do with going out of Egypt? The first 2 chapters of Shema is about what? Serve God, obey God, study Torah, teach Torah, mezuzah, tefillin, the yoke of God. The third portion is what? Tzitzit. To remind us, it's next week's parsha, to remind us that God is in charge. But then you conclude the whole thing. Remember, I took you out of Egypt, from I am your God, to take you out of Egypt. You never forget. Leman tizkeru. You have to remember it forever. What does God remember in it going out of Egypt? Even if it's a mitzvah that incumbent upon us every day, why is it attached to Shema? Why my Shema bedtime, before I go to bed and entrust my soul to God, I say the Shema accepting God's yoke, I understand. But what does Egypt have to do? In fact, it was not said together with the Shema. Shema, the first 2 chapters are going to be saying the book of Deuteronomy. The going out of Egypt is the book of Exodus. There is no connection. What's the connection? And as the Rebbe will explain to us, there is no way to serve God, no matter how much I want, unless I live in freedom. And the way to live in freedom is a constant battle, a constant war, because that's the way God is acting towards us. He continuously allowing us to enjoy a relationship and reinvigorating our relationship as long as we are opening up our arms and willing to accept God. This is this chapter. Any questions so far? Ali?
No, that's okay.
So the points again in this chapter. Coming out of Egypt is not something that happened. It's a historic event, but has nothing to do with the mitzvah to remember out of exit from Egypt, but it's something that happens today, every single day. Number 2, when we thank God for giving us the Torah, we say Noten Torah. Not Natan. Natan means gave us. Noten means giving us. And we talked about it in JLI. Every morning we begin the day with thanking God for giving us the Torah. And in fact, one of the commandments is to consider that God is coming to me today and offering me the Torah, and tomorrow you'll offer me the Torah again. It's not in the past tense, it's presence. And the last one is, what's the connection between Shema and coming out of Egypt? So, skipping the introduction, I'm reading on page 722. The following statement is actually from the Mishnah. However, the Rebbe adds in every day. There is three words the Rebbe is writing. In every generation and every day, the words every day is the Rebbe's addition. A person is obligated to regard himself as if he had that day come out of Egypt. It is a mitzvah. We say it every single day several times. On the Passover, we have an entire holiday dedicated to the exodus of Egypt, and we say that we have to know every generation and every day as if I just came out of Egypt. This text is cited from the Mishnah of Psachim, Tractate Psachim, except that the Alter Rebbe inserts the phrase "and every day," and that day. For the Exodus is not only an event which takes place in every generation, it is also a daily event in the spiritual life of the Jew. Says the Rebbe, this refers to the release of the divine soul from the confinement of the body, the serpent's skin. Mitzrayim is the name of Egypt. Egypt in Hebrew is Mitzrayim. The word Mitzrayim also is the same word of boundaries, Meitzarim. Meitzar homos. Have you heard of a homos straits? Straits, right? The Iranian and the USA. What do you call it? The Straits of Hormuz, right? How do you say it in Hebrew? Meitzarei homos. Because Meitzar is straits, is confinement, is boundaries. Mitzrayim, Egypt, Mitzrayim, boundaries. In a spiritual sense, it refers to boundaries, unable to go out of my natural habitat. This refers to the release of the divine soul from the confinement of the body, the serpent's skin. The body is a source of confinement for the divine soul, since it derives its life force from Klippa. It is from the exile that the divine soul escapes in order to be absorbed into the unity of the light of the blessed Ein Sof by engaging in the Torah and commandments or in general. Says Rabbi, if you want to start getting out and connecting to God, the first thing is you have to remember you have a mitzvah to get out of Egypt. You have to go out of the boundaries of the limitations the body is setting. And in particular, through accepting the sovereignty of heaven during the recital of Shema, wherein the person explicitly accepts and draws upon himself God's unity when he says, the Lord is our God and the Lord is one, as it has previously been explained in chapter 46, that our God is understood in the same way as the God of Abraham and so forth, because he became nullified and absorbed into the unity of the light of the blessed Ein Sof. What the rabbi said, here is the commentary, and I'll explain it in a moment. Abraham's self-nullification and consequent union with God were so complete that God is called the God of Abraham. Through the performance of the mitzvot, the same may be said of every Jew, so that God may rightfully be called our God. That's why we said last week, I spoke about, that's why the beginning of the Amidah we say, God our Lord, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac. What do you mean the God of Abraham and our God? It's the same God. The answer is not name of God. God has 7 names that are spelled out in our tradition. One of those names is Elohim. Elohim. Elohim is the numerical for nature, Hateva in Hebrew. Elohim can be spelled out God of Abraham, God in plural, God in the past, God in the future. Why? Because it's the God that created the universe and confined to the limitation of the universe. Therefore, it all depends how much you allow him in. Havaya, Adoshem, Kel, is is beyond nature, and therefore it doesn't matter how much I open. God is all-encompassing. Elokeinu is God based on my ability. I'm able to, so to say, control the level. So there is the God of Abraham, and there is my God. It's the same, but the way it connects with me is different than the way it connects with Abraham, because Abraham was a chariot for God. I hope I made myself clear. Ali, is it hard to understand?
Better.
It
goes back to the uniqueness of the teaching of our religion.
Of course. But the uniqueness can be expressed with any other of God's names, except this one is a real interaction on both ways. Ali, I'm going to use an example. Tell me if it clarifies. You have two entities that affects humanity. One is the sun, and the other is rain. The sun shines to an area, of course, in the Netherlands is different than Alaska, but the sun goes down. It doesn't matter how you dress. It doesn't matter where you are. The sun will heat the neighborhood. The sun will affect the human beings all equally the same. If we both wear warm garments, it will affect in one way. If we both don't have an umbrella, it will burn us equally the same. Is that correct, Ali? Rain, on the other hand, when it rains, it will benefit me depending on the vessel that I have. If I have a barrel and I put outside and you have a bottle, who is going to be the winner? The barrel, right? After the rain is gone, what am I left with in this bottle? Maybe a half an ounce. One with a barrel has about 5 gallons. Is that true? The rain is different. The rain is the same in the bottle, in the barrel. It's the same. It's all about the container that I prepare to absorb that water. Havaya, Adoshem, all the other names are equally all-encompassing. We talked about it on Sovev level. Elohim is the only one like rain, droplets. And therefore God says, depending on your container, if you have a bigger container, you get more. You have a smaller container, you get less. Don't blame the rain, blame yourself. So when I look at the end of the day, I sold my barrel and I got $50. You sold your barrel and you got $2. Does that mean that it's unfair to you? The answer is no, because your container is a much smaller container. Don't blame the rain. There was no preference. The rain did not prefer one person versus the other. The rain was needing a container. The container is what makes the difference. Do you understand that? Abraham had a huge container. So his water, we call it God of Abraham, because there's a lot. I can jump in and swim there. But I have a small container, and sometimes the cap is over. That's called my God. My God is much smaller. Can you sell it? Nobody wants to buy so little water. But it's the same water. But however, because it depends on the container, it will impact the content. Do you understand that? So when it comes to Havaya and Adoshem, all of us are the same. You won't find Havaya of Abraham, Havaya of Yitzchak, Havaya of ours. It's Havaya equally in the past. There's no plural, singular. It's all the same. It's a sun. The rain, on the other hand, have a connection directly with me. It comes down. The sun remains up. The rain comes down here. So the bigger my container, the more I grab. Therefore, it's my God. So my God can be the God I had yesterday is different than the God I have tomorrow. The God that Abraham had is much different than my God, even though we're both standing outside enjoying the rain. Did you understand? Thank you.
No. around where you grew up, like, we did a thing about Mitzrayim. The way I learned it is, if we hadn't gotten out of Egypt, we would be slaves today, still, all the generations. I think you want to remember.
What?
Gotten out of, God had help us get out of Egypt, we'd still be slaves today.
Well, that's the simple childish, because we say it in the Agada. If God had not taken us out of Egypt, we, our children, grandchildren, would still be enslaved to Egypt. Kabbalah is questioning it. Kabbalah explained based on what to explain. What do you mean we would be there? We would rebel. There is no, we would fight back. After all, don't accept at face value everything you've been told. The answer is the idea of freedom is what the Jew in Egypt lacked. Freedom spiritually. We spoke on the JLI, the last JLI that you missed. It was all about this, and all that we said is that's why, what happened to those men that came out of Egypt? They continuously wanted to go back. I'm asking you, you've been a slave, treated like a dog with a leash. And finally somebody says, I release you, you go away. Would you want to go back to your master and be a slave again? So the idea, it's a mental slavery. That idea of freedom is something that we battle today. And therefore, every day, if I do not go out of Egypt, if I do not appreciate it, I would have been there today. I can be enslaved today in a free country. It doesn't take away from the fact that I can be a slave to my body. But there was other things I wanted to share.
Story.
Uh-huh.
Story.
A story. I wanted to share I forgot already. So back to our discussion. The basic, the start, the foundation of serving God and living a full life is understanding that we must live a free life. If I'm enslaved, by the way, today addiction is very prevalent. Why is it prevalent? Because we don't push ourselves to live a free life. It's easy. Just like those people who left Egypt, they continuously wanted to go back. It's so easy for people to get addicted because it's an easy cop-out, unfortunately. And I'm not passing judgment, God forbid. I hope that I will not be facing that challenge. And we should be there to assist. But the idea, why is it so prevalent? Because we enjoy, we take for granted the idea of freedom. And therefore, we were looking to test freedom to the extreme. And it turned out to be getting enslaved. The idea of freedom should be appreciated every moment of my life. Remember what I told you, that the Ragachow says that marriage exists every moment? If I don't appreciate freedom every moment, I'll lose it. And that's what happened to people who don't appreciate that gift called freedom. They are unable to appreciate the fact that they can make choices, and making good choices takes them out of the comfort zone. And that's what kills people, to remain in their comfort zone. Unfortunately, it's not a healthy place. That's why, by the way, there is a famous rabbi that counts the 613 commandments, the Smak, Sefer Mitzvot Katan. I forgot his name, but he's one of the earliest that count on 613 commandments. He has a whole discussion. By the way, this topic that I'm sharing with you, that can take another 5 hours to discuss, and I don't want to get into it. I don't want to spill into a whole different area. The Samak is asking, the first of the 10 commandments, I am you, God, who took you out of Egypt. What is the mitzvah? Each one of the commandments is a mitzvah. What's the mitzvah? The second was, don't worship other gods. I understand. The third one is, Or the fourth one is keep Shabbat. The fifth one is honor your father and mother. Don't steal, don't murder. I understand. Don't bear false witness. Don't revenge. I understand that. What is the first one? If someone can explain to you, what's the mitzvah of the first of the commandment? And it's not an introduction. It's a commandment, one of the 10 commandments. He has a whole debate. And by the way, what I'm sharing is his opinion. Many people disagree with him, but it's a very valid opinion. There is a whole Kabbalistic discussion. Harry, do you understand the question? Answer the smuck. This rabbi says that the idea of God, the first commandment is to appreciate freedom. That's why God says, I am you, God. What's his next words? I took you out of Egypt. I'm you, God. What does that have to do? It's not dependent on any condition. And if he didn't take us out of Egypt, he's not my God. He is my God. But the idea, the first mitzvah, I'm you, God, therefore, you must believe in Mashiach, according to him, the ultimate freedom, where there will be no challenges. And until then, you must fight for freedom. And that's why God attached the first commandment, we took you out of Egypt. So according to him, what is the mitzvah? The first commandment is to await the arrival of Mashiach and to believe that we all have freedom. We have all free choice, and no one should take away someone else's freedom. Ali, did you understand that? Wow. Okay.
If you have an addiction,
You're gonna blind pig.
if you have an addiction, you've taken away your free agency or your ability to
You
choose.
give your freedom to a substance or an activity. Exactly. Why was it not so prevalent 50 years ago? So some people say, because we didn't have time, we didn't have the money. People didn't have money for drugs. People didn't have time to roam around and do all kinds of stuff, drinking and DUI, etc., which is true. I say it has to do with something else. We have so abundance of freedom that we lose the value of freedom. As a Jew, I wake up thanking God for freedom. I go to bed thanking God for freedom. Therefore, every moment of my life is filled with that appreciation. So I don't want to choose something that will hurt my freedom. Is this a medicine to stop people from addiction? No, but definitely it helps me, and definitely it's a very powerful tool that enables people to live a good life. What do people who, go to the 12 steps? One is that together, the support from one another, and the other is to humble yourself before an ultimate power. That's the power of freedom. That's what freedom is about. So you don't have to be religious. When God took us out of Egypt, when God says, I am you, God, the mitzvah is to realize I took you out of Egypt and no one should take over you freedom, and to believe in the coming of Mashiach, because Mashiach will be an ultimate freedom. That's according to Smak. Some disagree with them, and I'm not going to get into it. This is a whole different discussion. But the idea of freedom is so central that when I sit on Passover and say, oh, I have a story. Here is a story. But again, did I make myself clear? Thank you.
Yeah.
Here is a story. In Crown Heights, there was a institution for girls that past teenage, and they wanted to discover Judaism. And there was a dorm and institute to study with them. Rabbi Manis Friedman would come to teach them. It's called Machon Chana, the Chana Institute, for girls who seek to, and they would come for one semester, 2 semesters. The Rebbe, it's named after the Rebbe's mother. The Rebbe's mother was Chana. So because it was named after the Rebbe's mother, the Rebbe agreed every year for Passover, after prayer, before he went home to celebrate the Seder with his Rebbetzin, he would go by on President Street to Machon Chana. By the way, your son got engaged in that place on President Street, I believe. Today it's became a hall allowing young couples to get engaged, etc. Daniel. So in Machon Chana, he would come in, check the tables, make sure it's set up beautifully, and if the Rebbe comes, it has to be the nicest. And after the Rebbe would give a blessing to all the girls, there would be 40, 50 girls there, and then walk to his house, which was a block and a half down the street on President Street. The rabbi that ran the Seder, they needed a male to run the Seder, his name is Rabbi Moshe Feller. Moshe Feller is from St. Paul, Minnesota. Rabbi Moshe Feller, so one year in 1978, the Rebbe walked in, and all the Hasidim are following, but they restricted only the Rebbe's secretaries. The Rebbe just walked in, he goes down to the basement where the dining room is, see that everything is clean and prepared for Passover, and then you'd go back up and check. Sometimes you check the dorms, the rooms, to make sure they are clean and neat, because if they knew the Rebbe is going to check, they made sure. And as the Rebbe went down, on the way up, he turned to Rabbi Feller and says, "Are you having someone asking the 4 questions of Passover?" And the Rebbe's secretary, Rabbi Gorner, says, "Yeah, his son, Mendel Feller, today is a Chabad rabbi. He was 5 years old at the time. He's going to ask the question." So the Rebbe turned to that child. The child was standing not far because the family of Rabbi Feller were there. And he turned to him and says, "Are you prepared to ask the 4 questions? Do you know them by heart?" And the child was shocked. He couldn't answer because he didn't expect he's 5 years old. The Rebbe is going to talk to him. So the Rebbe turned back to him, and in English, he asked him. At first, he asked him in Yiddish, do you know the 4 questions? Do you know them by heart? Are you prepared to ask? And by that time, the child got back and said, "Yes, I am." And the Rebbe turned to his father and says, "So the child knows the questions. Does the father know the answer, prepared to answer?" And everybody burst in laughter. And the Rebbe continued on, went up the stairs and left. In the morning, Rabbi Feller says, he stayed in bed a little longer after drinking 4 cups of wine and a farbrengen. So he walked into 770 exactly when the Rebbe walked out. The Rebbe's finished about 12 o'clock. That's when he came in. And he saw the Rebbe coming out of prayer, going into his room. Immediately, a minute later, the Rebbe's secretary is running down to Rabbi Feller, and he says, "The Rebbe wants to see you right now." So he runs upstairs to the Rebbe's room, and the Rebbe was still wearing his talis, meaning he just came. And the Rebbe says to him, "Remember last night I asked if you prepared the answers?" And everybody was laughing. I don't make jokes. I have no time for jokes. I was very serious. Do you know what to answer the child? And Rabbi Feller, as a Chassid, don't answer the Rebbe. And the Rebbe says to him, a child knows no chochmes. He's not too smart. And he doesn't follow a dictum. In other words, the child don't care that the fact that we did it last year and 2 years ago, like Harry says, that's the way I was raised. Children are not like that. They are going to question everything. The answer a father must have is, what is this year different than last year? These are the answers you need to prepare. Do you have answers? Are you able to tell your child, I'm sitting to celebrate freedom tonight? And it's not just because we did it last year, but there is new freedom, new idea of freedom that exists tonight. Ali, did you understand that? So Rabbi Feller was quiet, and he says, if I understand what the Rebbe meant, is that just like, that's what he says, it's just like the Torah tells us, every day we must remember that we came out of Egypt. Every year we must think that we're coming out of Egypt, and find a reason to come out of Egypt that's different than last year and the year before and the year before. And Rabbi says to him exactly that. And that's what I meant asking, do you have an answer for your child? Not just reading the text, That's not answering the child. That's making fun that the child later will criticize. And then Rabbi Feller says he felt that this was an appropriate time. He turned to the Rebbe and he says, it's also my personal going out to freedom because my birthday is today. And he says, many years back, my father celebrated the Passover Seder, the first night. And right after the Seder, he took my mother to the hospital, and I was born at midnight, at midnight of the Seder. So he says, I would like to, he asked for a blessing. And the Rebbe says to him, that's the idea of celebrating a birthday. Every year, learn what freedom this year is bringing you that you can take for the next year. So Passover is the birth, this is my paraphrasing. Passover is the birth of the Jewish people. A birthday should be a milestone to understand what freedom is in a way that was not understood last year. I didn't have the means, I didn't have the knowledge, I didn't have the connection, I didn't have the place, so I didn't have the time. That's the idea of Passover. Harry, did you understand? Now you understand why the idea of if God did not take us, we would be enslaved. It's not about the physical slavery. It's all about the attitude. Because freedom is, I am you, God, who took you out of Egypt. If I do not have freedom, I am not able to serve God because I'm not free. And if I think that freedom is the same that happened last year and 2 years ago, I don't understand what birthday is. I don't understand what Passover is. I don't understand what my day is all about because it may as well I can skip a day. My role is to remember I came out of Egypt this morning and wake up and say, God, thank you for allowing me to breathe, having family, having my home, a roof, and I'll do my best to live as a free person, mentally, spiritually, as well as materially. I will do what's right for me. I will not be succumb to my desires or other people's desires, and I will not follow, but I will be a leader in my own life. I hope I'm very clear because I want to finish it. Yes, Ali?
Yeah.
Did you get the story, Ali? What the rabbi is going to say, because I want to finish the chapter. What the rabbi is going to say is Abraham enjoyed a very strong bond with God. Why? He had a choice. He searched for God. Elokei Abraham, and he bonded completely with God. I have a choice too, with one exception. After Abraham enjoyed that, God has made a covenant during the giving of the Torah that he will never forsaken us. And therefore I was born into it. And therefore it's much easier. I don't have to search. And for that I have a story. There was a famous Gerer Rebbe that lived 120 years ago. His name is the Sfas Emes. When the Sfas Emes was 23, he became the Rebbe. Gur is arguably one of the largest Hasidic movements. In Israel, they are probably number one, except Chabad. And he became a 23. People who are 70, 80, grandfathers would follow him. Some of the elders were kind of complaining, this young man becoming a Rebbe, 23. One of the Hasidim says, let me show it you a parable. Imagine you climbing Mount Everest, and you have the gear and the training and the exercise, and you start walking, and you walk through the atmosphere and the clouds and the cold and the snow and the gear and the tents and everything. After 6 weeks, you finally reach the peak of the mountain. Oh, you are so excited. It will be a milestone that you will appreciate forever. And then you look around, you see a little child is playing there with a ball. And you tell the child, what are you doing here? How did you make it here? The child said, I have no idea. I was born here. My parents did all their hardship, and I am their product here. I was born here. He says some people would work very, very hard, toil, invest, practice, and take many days, failing, getting up, getting injured. By the time you reach the peak, It's a milestone. But some people, their parents already did it for them, so they are there already. The Rebbe was born on the peak. He says all these elderly people are trying to reach that point, but that's their fate. That's where they're supposed to go. The Rebbe, it's a whole different ballgame. He was born there. Once Abraham reached the peak, Elokei Abraham, I was born there. I don't have to go through the tests and trials that Abraham did, because God allowed us to stay there, and that relationship is a much easier to attain. That's the point the Rabbi is going to make. We are page 723. Except that Abraham merited this union by reason of his works, and is advancing in holiness from degree to degree, until he uplifted himself to this great level of nullity and unification of self with God. As it is written, in Abraham journeying, going on and on to the south. Abraham progressed from level to level until he attained the esoteric level of the south, which alludes to the highest possible degree of love for God. Abraham, south in Israel is the desert, hot, heat, passion. Anybody knows the south? The north is the Golan Heights spot, it's cold, the peaks. In Israel, the south is a desert, it's the heat. So Abraham journeyed on and on and on until he reached the south. The south, in Kabbalistic terminology, is a strong bond of love with God, which alludes to the highest possible degree of love for God. Abraham then achieved this state as a result of his own labors. But as for us, the children of Abraham, for us it is a heritage and a gift, in that he has given us his Torah, and he has clothed in it his will and wisdom, which are united to its essence and being in perfect unity. And surely this is as if he gave us his very self, as it were, since his wisdom and will are one with him. Through Torah study and performance of mitzvot, we are able to take him, as it were, and be united with him. So what does it mean God gave us the Torah? Abraham got the Torah, Isaac got the Torah, Jacob got the Torah, but not as a gift with God's essence in it, a bond, a covenant forever. So I don't have to go through all the steps that Abraham went through, because I'm already there. This is, as the Zohar comments on the verse, that they bring to me an offering. The word "to me," says the Zohar, actually means to take me, to take God. And here is I'll explain that. The Zohar interprets the word Truma, offering, as referring to the Torah, in as much as it is composite of the word Torah, and the letter Mem alludes to the Torah that was given after Moses' 40 days sojourn on the mountain. The numerical value of Mem is 40. The Zohar goes on to explain that through Teruma, through Torah, Jews are enabled to take me, to take God. Let me explain. In the Torah about building the temple, the first time God says to Moshe, tell the Jewish people, Ve'ikhu li truma, let they take to me truma. What does truma means? Contribution, right? No, according to Zohar, truma is made out of two letters, two words. Take out the letter Mem from truma, you will get the word Torah. Mem, what is Mem? Letter Mem is numerical value of 40. The Torah that was given to Moshe at 40 days of study. So ve'ikhu li, let them take me, not the ve'ikhu bishvili, for me. It doesn't say let them take for me. Let them take me. They will take me. How? Through Teruma, through the Torah that was given in 40 days. Harry, do you understand that?
Yes.
The Rabbi says the text should hence have read me and an offering with a vav. Since me refers to God, an offering refers to Torah, it would seem more appropriate for the verse to state, you shall take me and an offering, Torah, since it is by means of the Torah that you take me. But except that both are one and the same, God and the Torah are truly one. were the verse to state me and an offering, we might be led to believe that the two are separate entities when in truth they are truly one of the and the same. Study it well there, and the matter will be clearly understood. Joe, all I'm going to say is, according to the Zohar, if you read the text is very unusual. It's written, and all the rabbis and commentators discuss it. According to Zohar, God says, "Let them take me, teruma, through Torah that was given by 40 days." How do you take God? Through the Torah. So if my wife says to me, "I love flowers," how do you take how do I take my wife's heart? Through the flowers. By God, the Torah is God himself. And he says, so as you study Torah, you take in God. That's a covenant that God made with the Jewish people. Abraham had to attain that level on his own, and he had to travel and journey continuously. You have it naturally. This is the meaning of what we recite, and you have given us, O Lord, our God, with love. You gave us God. He gave us himself with love. Because of his great love for us, he granted us the gift that he be our God, so that we may be united with him. It is also stated, "For by the light of your countenance have you given us, O Lord our God." It's all part of prayer. Once again, stressing the gift he has given us vis-a-vis that he is our God. Therefore, I'm going to skip this and I'm going to go to the next paragraph. Nothing stands in the way of the soul's unity with God and his light except one's will. For should the person not desire at all, God forbid, to cleave to him, then this unity will not be achieved. On one hand, God continuously recreating love towards him, bonding towards him. There is nothing left for us to do other than open up our arms and be willing to accept God. Because Abraham had to work hard to connect. The connection is already done. How do I make sure the connection is alive? Study the Torah. Make sure that you study the Torah, you're bonding with God. And that's the idea of freedom that has to be recreated continuously to be able to connect to God. Because if I have no freedom, I do not have connection to God. But immediately, when he does so desires and accepts and draws upon himself his blessed godliness and declares that Lord is our God and the Lord is one, then surely is his soul spontaneously absorbed into God's unity, for the individual's yearning spirit evokes spirit and awakens from above and draws forth and bestows spirit. And an added measure of spirituality so that the person is drawn to God and cleaves to him. And this dynamic within the person's soul is a form of exodus from Egypt. Now we understand. What do we begin the Shema? Hear, O Israel, God is our Lord, God is one. And the next one is Ve'avta, love God, bond with God. You know how it's attained? By getting out of Egypt. So all of that, Shema, bonding with God, serving God, obeying God, can only be done. Remember, I took you out of Egypt. Be a free person. Allow your soul to roam free and not allow the body to constricted. Did I make myself clear? Now you understand why the mitzvah of remembering Egypt has to do with the Shema. But there is another point, the Rabbi, and that's what the Rabbi is going to say. There is another point, and I want to address those of us who pray every day. Anyone who prays every day, what's the introduction to Shema? Az Yashir, the song of the Jewish people singing at the crossing of the sea after they crossed and they saw the Egyptians dead. Did you realize that the entire praise of Az Yashir is all about the Egyptians? Very little about God, very little about the Jews. We talked about their chariots, we talk about Pharaoh, we talk about the riders, we talk about the horses, we talk about sinking this way, drowning another way, we talk about their treasure. Not much about us. not much about God. Only the end we say God will reign forever. All the other, it's about 19 verses, I believe, 18 or 17 of them, all about the Egyptians. I don't understand. Egyptians are dead. They're gone. You praise God. Okay, thank God for taking you out of Egypt. Think about the miracles, but share how you feel. Share how you connecting to God, because that's the idea of Az Yashir. But the answer is nothing can be done unless we get rid of slavery. Egypt represents slavery, and it comes in so many forms. Therefore, before you start building, you have to clear the field. You have to clear the ground and make sure it's a solid ground. And don't underestimate the priority and the importance of it. Therefore, the whole of Az Yashir, the whole of singing and praising God that we say every morning in a prayer before Shema, all to do about what happened to Egypt, who is Egypt, how we learn what to stay away from Egypt. About me, I'm not ready yet. I'm going to get to Shema. That's when I'm going to talk about bonding with God. Ali, do you understand this? Good. Therefore, it was ordained that the paragraph concerning the exodus from Egypt be read specifically during the recitation of Shema as an adjunct to it. Even though it, that is, recalling the verbalizing the Exodus, is a commandment by itself, not pertaining to the commandment to recite the Shema, as stated in the Talmud and codes. According to Jewish law, you have to remember Exodus from Egypt every day. That's a mitzvah. And you have a mitzvah also to say Shema morning and evening. What does the two have to do with each other? Recalling the Exodus and the formal recitation of Shema were placed together, says the Rebbe, for they are actually the same thing according to Kabbalah. Going out of Egypt, freedom will enable us to bond with God. Accepting the kingdom of heaven during the Shema and the Exodus from Egypt are truly one and the same, since this acceptance is one's personal spiritual exodus, whereby the divine soul escaped the encumbrance of the body. Likewise, the paragraph referring to the exodus from Egypt also concludes, I am the Lord your God, who took you out of Egypt, I am the Lord your God. This also accords with what has been explained earlier, that through the Exodus one ensures that God becomes his God by achieving total unification with him. From the above, we realize that the Exodus from Egypt is a daily event in the life of the Jew. Hence, just as during the first historical Exodus explained earlier, God showed us his boundless love, obligating us to respond in kind, loving him as water mirrors the face to the face, so too should the daily individual spiritual exodus affect us, since God constantly shows us his boundless love. And this concludes the chapter. So in summary, why do we have a mitzvah to remember Egypt? Because Egypt is not an event that took place 3,000 years ago, but something that happened to me every single day. Why is it connected to Shema? Because Shema is about bonding with God, serving, accepting God's yoke. It can only happen if I am a free person who appreciates freedom. Why do we have in the Ten Commandments the first commandment, which is, I'm your God who took you out of Egypt? Because taking us from Egypt is what ensures that I'm your God. And that's why I said before Shema, we talk about Az Yashir, which talks about the Egyptians only, because to get out to appreciate freedom is the basis, the foundation that enables us to bond with God. How do you bond with God? By performing a mitzvah, by studying the Torah. It's be done when we allow the soul to overpower the boundaries, the straits of the body, of the human body. That's what Egypt is all about. Mitzrayim, straits, and overcoming it creates a very strong bond. And I think the lesson is also in every relationship, we must reinvigorate, reinvest, and reenact the relationship as if it starts fresh. That's the secret for a healthy life. Thank you very much, everybody. Next week, we'll continue chapter 48. We are moving to the finish line.
We'll have
Thank you very much.
to continue on Monday.